right. Well, welcome along, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name's Kerry, if you haven't met me before, and we've got our writing circle today on proofreading. So let's get started. So to begin, QUT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits, and we recognise these lands have always been places of teaching, research and learning, and QUT acknowledges the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. All right, I just popped the slides up on Blackboard literally 2 minutes ago. I'm just popping the link for you in there, and the recording will go up, I think tomorrow it'll be. I don't think it'll be this afternoon, but you will get an email letting you know when that's up. So today we're looking at the importance of effective proofreading skills, because you do want to improve your draft so you can seek feedback. And we're going to look at some proofreading strategies, and we're going to practice those strategies with some exemplars, and you're going to practice proofreading your own writing. Now, as always with our writing sessions, doesn't matter where you're up in your candidature, whichever type of thesis you're doing, the strategies we talk about will still be applicable. They'll also be applicable for research articles as well. Okay, and let's go. So hoping to get to our exemplars by 10:45 and hopefully give you a good half an hour on your proofreading. We'll try our very best. If we spend a bit longer on the exemplars, you might have a little less time on your document. But of course, you can always keep doing these activities later as well, because you do have all the resources. Now, I haven't got polls. Zoom's been doing something weird with polls, but you can pop this into the chat. If you'd like to, you can just put your A, B, C, D, E in. That would be fantastic. Just wondering where everybody's up to. And we've got a confirmation, research seminar. We've got a final seminar. Someone wrote K. I'm not sure about K. Right, so we've got a lot of different ones. Yep, some people still at the proposal stage. Yeah, as I said, won't matter. You still need to proofread no matter where you're up to. Oh, you meant D, okay. Final seminar, awesome. All right. So let's keep going. Now, the UniHub event reminder email, it is sent the day before the session, early in the morning. So please open those emails so you know what you need to do. So hopefully you have come prepared with these paragraphs from a section or a chapter. That's what I advised. We want to have more than one or two. You're going to get more out of the proofreading strategies that we're looking at today if you've got some consecutive paragraphs making up a section. Paragraphs that you haven't received feedback from would probably be ideal as well. So you do a save as, use your Word document. If you've already printed, that's also another good way. But if you haven't got some writing ready, please do that so that you're ready to go once we get up to that part. Now we are proofreading 2 exemplars, and I'm going to pop the activity sheet into the chat right now. I did hope to actually email it to you early this morning, but I ran out of time, unfortunately, sorry. So I am giving it to you right now. All right, so what you need is your own writing and this exemplar activity sheet. So we analyze exemplars so that you can practice looking and noticing at the writing quality, which then you can apply to your own writing. We've got two exemplars today. One is from a research proposal, and it's the methodology section, just the first couple of paragraphs. Exemplar 2 is from a final thesis, and it's a literature review. So as I said, we do have limited time, of course. So if you need more time for these activities, keep working on them later. And of course, I'm hoping you're going to implement these proofreading strategies consistently throughout your candidature as well. All right, so we should be all ready with our writing and our activity sheet. Now, just to start you thinking, try and think back to some feedback that you've received previously or something that you know you need to improve on, and go into your Word document that you're going to use today and just write a couple of dot points at the top of the draft, just reminding yourself of those aspects of your writing that you know you often need to improve, or you've got feedback as something you need to do. And that will just remind you to be looking out for those parts of your writing. So it could be something to do with grammar. It could be with your vocabulary. It could be some topic sentences, paragraph structure. It could be that you're not always showing your critical voice and the so what. Whatever it is, just pop a couple of dot points up. I'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, so another question here again, sorry, pop in the chat for me, please. The polls are doing something weird at the moment in Zoom. So you would have just put a couple of dot points. What did you put? Anything to do with any of these options? If you want to put the A, B, C, D, E in the chat. So we've got paragraph structure, great. D and E, making the main point clear, writing critically. Yep, so that's good. Good, writing critically, yes. A, B, some grammatical accuracy there. Yep, okay, awesome. I mean, we're talking about all of these things today, really. So my main point of getting you to do this is making you think about what it is that you need to improve. All right, excellent. Thank you for putting those in the chat. Excellent. All right, let's have a look at why we need to be good proofreaders of our own writing. And just a reminder, please pop your student ID in the chat if you didn't do that already. I think most of you have. All right, so proofreading is related to your academic literacy. So academic literacy is your understanding of the field of study, the genre of writing, and being part of your research community. So there is an assumption that reading and writing, everyone can read and write, it's their basic skills. Well, the writing that we're doing about research is far from basic, isn't it? It's quite challenging as far as our cognitive processes, problem solving. It's very much related to confidence in our research skills, critical thinking. So there's really specific writing practices in research writing. There's discourses related to a field of study. And we're often questioning ourselves, aren't we? Am I doing this right? Is my research going to find anything? Will anyone care? So yes, they will care, because you're going to write a beautiful thesis that's clear and explicit and leads the reader through. So if we're good proofreaders, we're going to have nice documents we can send, and we can get constructive feedback from our supervisors and anyone else giving us feedback. So improving your academic literacy means increasing your knowledge of your field, your deep understanding of your research topic, and of course, your research communication skills. And if you're confident in those, you're going to have a positive student and researcher identity, and you're going to have a feeling of belonging. So these all go hand in hand. Your ability with your effective writing practices will increase your confidence, decrease any anxiety, and of course enable you to disseminate your research in a clear way. You're then an operating person and researcher in your research community and field of study. So all intertwined, which we talk about all the time, don't we? So back to that same old thing, drafts, drafts, and more drafts. This is where your proofreading comes in, isn't it? Initially, you're proofreading for yourself. You'll make that messy draft. You'll go in and proofread, revise, and then you've got a draft that you need to proofread to then send on to generally your supervisors to get that feedback. So that draft writing and those messy drafts are getting your thinking down, then proofread and refine. So really try not to edit as you write. You'll interrupt that thinking and writing process. So this proofreading we're talking about today is not writing. Schedule it separately to your writing time. And a really good thing to do as well is try to leave your documents, your drafts for a day, and then come back with fresh eyes and be ready to proofread. Peter Elbow, that quote there. So he's a professor of English. He's a seminal researcher in the field of writing pedagogy. And meaning is not what you start with, is it? Your messy drafts. The meaning's not quite there, is it? But you're getting your thoughts down. And then this proofreading is making sure the meaning is there. It's explicit and clear, and the reader will understand, and they will get that deep understanding of your research. All right, as always, all about the reader. I know I say this every time, but it is so, so important. Your proofreading, one of the main things is no silly errors, okay? You really need to pick those up, so you need to have a keen eye. We don't want to frustrate the reader. Never ask someone to read a document that you haven't proofread. Why? Because you'll have those silly errors, and you know they're giving you their time to give you feedback. So let's make sure it's an enjoyable experience for them. We don't want them to work hard, and we'll talk about this a lot, is making sure the significance and contribution of your research is explicit and clear all the way through and repeated. This is what is going to engage the reader and keep them wanting to know more. If that meaning is there and they can see the value of your study, you want to persuade them. So these are the sorts of things we're looking for when we proofread. So we need to get in the reader's shoes, don't we? And it does take a little bit of time to get good at that. The more you seek feedback and also give other people feedback and receive feedback, if you're active in a feedback process, you're going to be able to get into their shoes. So think about that dialogue that you're having with the reader. Make sure the value and significance is clear. Otherwise, the communication is likely going to fail because you're not being able to persuade them and engage the reader. Another really important thing to think about, and we'll go through this again in our strategies, is understand the purpose of each section and chapter. There's something you want the reader to know that's important and linked obviously to your research topic. So for them to gain that deep understanding, know the purpose of every section and then make sure you've achieved that purpose as well. So let's think about those purposes. What could they be? So in your methodology section, what's the chapter? The purpose of that chapter is for the reader to gain a clear understanding of exactly what you did and how you did it and why you did it and the justification for it, isn't it? And each section will have a specific purpose around that. So that's what I mean about purpose. Within your literature review, there's a number of purposes, isn't there? But there will be one aspect where you're critically analysing previous studies. So the purpose of a section could be some of the critical analysis of previous studies. Another section might be about the research gap. So be really clear, you know, it's what we always talk about with readers, isn't it? They're your audience. Who are your audience? Know who they are. We know that, ultimately your examiners. And what is it they want? They want a deep understanding of what you did and why you did it and how you did it. So every section is working towards that. So if we look at the activity there, the section that you're writing now, can you think about the purpose? What is it that you need the reader to know from them reading this section that you're writing now? Does anyone want to pop something in the chat? All right, so if you're talking about the importance of the research topic, are you in your introduction maybe? Or are you in the lit review? Yeah, introduction. Okay, awesome. So that's good. So when you're proofreading, you need to think about, well, has that purpose been achieved? Is the reader going to read through that section and go, yes, I can exactly see why this is an important research topic? Anybody else? In the discussion, what I found, what it means, how it relates to the surrounding literature. Yes, perfect. Good. Comparing results with the literature, which would then be the discussion as well. All right, so you can see, and it, you know, this isn't something you have to think about for a long time. You'll be pretty clear, right, in each section. Okay, my aim here is to do this. So when you're proofreading, you're thinking, okay, well, did I achieve this aim? So just having a look here, we're talking about proofreading your own writing at the moment, but at some point your supervisory team and you might decide to engage a professional proofreader or an editor. There's information on HiQ. I'm just going to pop that link into the chat. It can help you. Best way to get a proofreader or editor is word of mouth. Ask your supervisors, ask your peers, someone who can come recommended, because it is expensive and you want it to be a good job. I have seen bad jobs done, I suppose, so we don't want that to happen. Remember the difference. Proofreader, they're really looking at the surface errors more than anything. Whereas an editor is looking at the writing quality and helping with clearer expression and probably giving you a little bit more there. So if you are engaging someone, you need to ask them, what are you doing? Are you just going to correct the surface errors, or are you going to help improve the quality of the writing? All right, let's look at some proofreading strategies. All right, as I said, proofreading is not writing. Try not to do both at the same time. Just write, use your writing sprints, or however it is that you get your writing done. Schedule your writing time and then schedule separate proofreading time. My advice is, when you are seriously proofreading, not just sort of looking and double checking, but if you're seriously ready to proofread and do a good job, print and read out loud and annotate with a pen on the paper is the best way. I'll show you why in a minute. And as we said before, know your weaknesses from feedback and make sure you keep those in your mind as well. Don't be in a hurry. Can't do this in a hurry. Attention to detail is essential. Now, with your writing weaknesses as such, what you may need to do is read through and proofread a couple of times. You know, if you have some specific grammar points that you know that you need to, you know, be careful of, you might need to read some of your paragraphs looking exactly for each of those. Sometimes it can be hard to look at everything at once. So just something to bear in mind, and we'll talk about that again in a minute. So why print? Wow, surprise, surprise. There has been research on this. Researchers show. So let's have a look. Proofreading printed text can increase accuracy and concentration and decrease fatigue. So the fatigue is from looking at screens. We all know that we do get fatigue, don't we? So proofreading something that's printed, you're going to be more accurate, you're going to pick up more, you're going to notice more, and probably be less fatigued. So the How research, reading outcomes on screens versus paper. Reading on paper has a positive effect on comprehension. So that increases your accuracy, right? Decreases the fatigue and increases engagement with the text. So again, down the bottom, reading on screen is fatiguing because it exhausts the reader's mental resources more quickly. Interesting, isn't it? And look, if you did an experiment yourself, I think you'd find the same thing. And I know printing's not always ideal, but look, this is important. So I think you can when you're really ready to proofread, when you've got a good section and you think, okay, I'm almost ready for feedback, let's do the serious proofread. Now that third point there is a really good one, the cognitive map mechanism. So what that is a contention that screens make it difficult for us to construct a cognitive map. So when you think about when we're reading on paper, we can see the whole thing, can't we? We're not really scrolling everything. Oh, I've just got to plug in my computer. Whoops, one sec. Okay, so yes, cognitive map mechanism. When we're reading on paper, we can see the whole text. I know it's going to be on different pages, but it's all set the same way. And that facilitates our ability to process and comprehend. So hopefully you're convinced about printing. What about reading aloud? Now, of course, you can do this without printing, and Word has a function that Word will read aloud. So yeah, good comment in the chat. Thank you. The cognitive map mechanism applies when I'm reading fiction ebooks as well. Yes, I resisted reading on an iPad for a very long time, but I see what you mean. The one good thing on an iPad, I don't know if the Kindle is the same, but on an iPad, you can still flick the pages. So it's almost like a book. But yeah, you're exactly right. There's nothing like actually having the book, is there? Okay, so reading aloud. Readers will find your writing clearer if it is understandable when it's read aloud. When you read aloud, you become better at writing clear and easy to read sentences. Now, this doesn't mean simple sentences, okay? It still means writing complex sentences, but it avoids sentences that are too long because you'll hear that the sentence is going forever. Repetition of vocab, again, you'll hear that. If you're jumping topics and if sentences are unclear, you're almost more likely to hear when something's odd than actually see it, especially when you're reading on the screen. Okay, so if you have to read on the screen, read aloud and you will more likely pick up more, but I'm hoping you're going to also print. All right, attention to detail is so essential. And again, that's why reading aloud and printing. So you need that keen eye. When you're proofreading as well, this is a minor thing, but be consistent with fonts and the way you're abbreviating and capitalizing. I see this so often. What do you, with your presentation of your document, we want the examiner to know that you also have a keen eye and have attention to detail in your research as well, don't we? So the two go hand in hand. If you've got a beautifully formatted and presented document, that bodes well to say that, well, you're very detailed in the way you've carried out your research as well. Be careful with your vocabulary, mix it up. Now, I've recommended thesaurus.com here. That's because, as we know, in English, a lot of words have, the same word can have different meanings, different contexts. Thesaurus.com will give you all the context. So if English isn't your first language in particular, but even if it is, using thesaurus.com ensures you get the right synonym. With your spelling, don't mix up your UK or your US, go with one. I recommend UK, of course, because we're in Australia. If you're writing a research article for an American journal, though, of course, you'll use US spelling. Always double check your in-text citations and your reference list as well. Sorry, I know most of you would be using a some kind of software, Cite as you write, or whatever it is. But remember that this software is only as good as your data entry. And if you've made an error and haven't realized, then of course, so your reference list and your in-text citations won't be correct either. And it's just a really good idea to understand the conventions as well and do a double check. All right, So as far as the proofreading goes, my best advice for you is divide it up. Okay, it's very hard to look at everything at once. So we have macro proofreading, which means the sections and the chapters. We're talking about coherence, okay, the big picture. And then your micro proofreading, we're talking about the paragraphs, the individual paragraphs, and the sentences and the words within each paragraph. So that's the cohesion, okay? And as we know, coherence and cohesion overlap at the paragraph level. So what I'm saying is, when you're ready to proofread, print out a section and read the whole section, looking at the coherence and the big picture first, before you get into the micro proofreading and checking the paragraphs that they flow properly, checking the accuracy of the sentence structure and the grammar and the appropriateness of the words. I'm saying, please separate the two out. It can be very hard to do both. We're going to look at why in a second. And then, of course, as I said, you've got your academic conventions and your long document formatting and making sure that consistency of style is there with capitals, and punctuation. So if you can divide into 3, you will be much more accurate, and your proofreading will be much better, which makes your document better, which then makes the feedback better. Okay, now I know it sounds like, oh, this is going to take me a long time. Not once you get good at it and know what you're looking for, and that time is worthwhile in the end. And in case you want to know more, we do have on Blackboard our resources from coherence and cohesion writing sessions this year. So you can go and have a look at those if you want a little bit more on the idea of the macro and the micro. So another question, if you can write in the chat again. So why do you think I'm saying do the macro proofreading before the micro proofreading? What do you think? So no tricking you. Definitely E. That's a trick, isn't it, for multiple choice questions? If there's a all of the above or a both 2 options, that's always the answer, isn't it? All right, yes, so you're exactly right. To examine the big picture first, because this is going to help us be more time efficient. It may not seem like it, but it will, and let's have a look why. So if you can get the big picture right first and get it clear, so we're talking coherence, remember, we're talking macro proofreading, then you can go in and check that the little parts, the micro parts, the paragraph and the sentence level parts are right. If you're focusing on each individual paragraph first, and then you spend, let's say, spend an hour, you make all your sentences perfect, potentially you don't have the big picture there the way you need it there, right? So if you have the big picture organized, then you can make sure that each of those paragraphs is building and making sure that that big picture is where you need it to be. So as you're macro proofreading and you notice a weird sentence, or you notice that a word isn't quite right, or a grammar error, I'm not saying don't go in and fix it. Fix it if it takes 2 seconds, but if it takes some thinking, I would just highlight it and go, oh yeah, I need to fix this. Because if you went in and spent 10 minutes fixing it, you've lost your train about the big picture, and potentially you fixed it and made it a fabulous sentence, but it's not doing what you need it to do to add to that coherence. All right. So, you know, you'll figure out your way. Okay. But really, smart way is to check the coherence of a section, then check the coherence of the whole chapter, which is all of your sections. Then you will have made some really nice notes for all your individual paragraphs, and you can go in and make sure that they're doing what you need them to do. So if I'm asking you to macro proofread first, what exactly does that mean? So in our coherence writing circle, and we also have a workshop called Engaging Your Reader. This is all about that macro part of your document. It's all about the big picture. So what is that? It is about weaving a common thread through every section and chapter, which means making sure in every single section, there's something in there that links that information back to your study. Generally, that's to do with the research problem, research aims, research gaps, could be research questions, could be a framework, conceptual, theoretical, whatever it might be. But you've got these common threads, you know, and they must run through the entire document. Therefore, when you're macro proofreading a section, we need to check, okay, is this information linked back to my thesis, my common thread? Because if it isn't, what you have is a beautiful section that tells us some information, but there's no meaning, right? And meaning is what we need for the reader to be engaged and persuaded. All right, so every single section, not necessarily every paragraph in every section, but every section must be linked back to your study to show the reader why you've told them all this information. Otherwise, it's words on a page. Beautiful words on a page, interesting words on a page, but so what? Who cares? You need to bring it back to your study. Remember, you know everything about your study, right? Now you want the reader to know everything about your study as well. So weave the common thread, that's one. Make explicit judgments and critical analysis. So that's your voice. That needs to be in every section as well. Now, those two might be linked. The common thread and your voice could be in the same sentence, potentially. Again, those explicit judgments and arguments and critical analysis is part of your coherence. It's leading the reader through and persuading. Now, you also need to make sure the significance and value of the research is explicit and clear as well. So again, those three things could all be combined. They could all be in one sentence, or they could be in separate sentences. So you need, and then again, that comes back to our aim, right? So whatever the aim of the section or the chapter, some of you said to explain the relevance of the research topic and the importance of it. So if that is your aim, then you need those explicit sentences with the common thread, your judgments in your voice, and saying why this research is needed and why it's valuable. These are your effective research writing practices that make your document coherent and make the reader persuaded and engaged. Okay, and then of course you've got your micro, which is your paragraphs, which is part of the structure, isn't it? And making sure that you've written in a clear way. So my advice is to macro proofread sections within a chapter, then the whole chapter, then go and do your micro proofreading. As you're macro proofreading, though, you can definitely be leaving notes, okay, to yourself, especially if you notice things like a topic sentence isn't clear, or you're thinking, and also don't forget with that macro proofreading of a section, you may change the structure as well. So that's another reason to micro proofread second, because if you've changed the structure, that might change your topic sentences and change what you need in each paragraph to lead the reader through. So thinking about critical analysis, I'm talking about your voice, okay? And as I said, that can be intertwined with the value of the research and also the common thread, all right? So you're making those explicit judgments. You're using reasoning and evidence and making a stance. Strong word choice, be explicit and be clear. So as you're macro proofreading, make sure every section has those explicit judgments and your voice. Again, doesn't have to be every single paragraph, okay? A paragraph could be giving some important information, and then maybe the next paragraph goes even deeper and explains further as to why this is an important part of your study and why you have this information. All right, we're going to look at an example. The example is in the activity sheet. I've just noticed that someone else has arrived. Does everyone have the activity sheet? If you don't have it, please let me know and I can pop it in the chat. Okay, so we're going to look for these key effective writing practices that are part of your macro proofreading. Okay, we're really focusing on that today. Write in the chat once we read it. If you can see something about a common thread, if you can see the researcher's voice, and if you can see something about the value of the research. All right, now, so this is the first paragraph of exemplar 1. Remember, it's a research proposal about emergency medical team training. And this is the very first paragraph of the research proposal. Let's have a look. Over the past few decades, significant efforts have been made to enhance the efficacy of training programs in cardiac resuscitation. Despite this, the survival rates from cardiac arrest have remained relatively stable, even with the introduction of internationally recognised resuscitation guidelines. One possible reason for these poor outcomes is that health professionals fail to follow standard guidelines, resulting in delays or failures to provide the appropriate treatment. Traditionally, training for cardiac resuscitation has focused on disseminating technical knowledge and task-specific practical skills, for example, knowledge of abnormal cardiac rhythms and appropriate use of a defibrillator. However, recent perspectives in higher education have highlighted the need for training programs to foster generic competencies as well as discipline-specific knowledge and skills. Generic competencies include non-technical skills that are important across all areas of a particular discipline. Given that healthcare delivery typically involves working as a member of a multidisciplinary team, generic competencies within this area would include skills such as communication, problem solving, and leadership. In relation to cardiac arrest and similar medical emergencies, generic competencies may be critical for effective team performance. This is because rapid delivery of care is essential for successful resuscitation of the patient. Therefore, by implication, the effective management of cardiac arrest will rely on factors such as the ability of team members to communicate their knowledge to others and coordinate their actions within an emergency timeframe. Yep, perfect. Research problem, poor outcomes. Good. Anything else? Can you see any? So how can we tell the researcher's voice or judgments and arguments? One really good way for us to see that is strong vocabulary. Can you see any strong vocabulary in there? And is there anything alluding towards what this research could bring in terms of value? General skills need work. Yes, yes, yes. Fail to follow is critical voice. Exactly. It's strong vocabulary, isn't it? Yeah. All right, good. Thank you. Let's have a look. Okay, so I've written there, remember this is an introduction section, because I want you to keep in mind what would be the aims here, right? We need to start persuading straight away that there is a problem and there's some value. So critical voice, I've mainly shown as far as the strong vocabulary. You can see there, despite this, poor outcomes, fail to follow. Those transition signals like however and therefore, they are part of your critical voice. They are showing that you are putting forward an argument, okay? Rapid delivery of care is essential, another strong word. These competencies may be critical for effective team performance. So the research problem is there. So initially, the first bit is when it's saying survival rates have remained stable. So they're not sort of saying that is bad, but I think they're saying, well, wouldn't it be good if survival rates were increased? And if they don't follow those guidelines, there's delays or failures to provide appropriate treatment, and we can assume either, you know, an outcome where the patient either dies or has some issues moving forward. Now, the research value, that's an interesting one, all right? I feel like that last sentence, therefore, the effective management of cardiac arrest will rely on factors such as communication. So we sort of are getting an idea of where this research is going. We can't be too critical because it is the first paragraph, and I've adapted it a little. But, you know, there's more to come, right? So we can't be too critical about the research value as yet. But what I've added there is it would be a really nice time, and the paragraph isn't too long. I would have added a sentence, or I would have advised this person to add a sentence to say, this research will investigate blah, blah, blah. So something about the aim, which would then, you can see how that would then go nicely with everything else, isn't it? If they sort of said, and that those research aims would then connect to what we're already assuming, that they're going to investigate improving the communication. So this is the sort of thing that I would hope that you would pick up in a section, right? That last bit that I've got here would be good to add a sentence. Okay, so the critical voice is there, the research problem, which is the common thread that you would have in an introduction to say, hey, we've got this problem. So if you can pick up in a section and say, I've got everything I need here. However, I could add a little bit more to make it more clear by bringing back to my research aims, or by adding something to say, so what, or whatever it might be. That's what you're really looking for with your macro proofreading. Have you persuaded the reader that this is an important study? All right, so as I say, I think proofreading sections is a good way to start, and then put your sections together and macro proofread the chapter. So for each section, this would be my list of how you would go. You would first write down the main point of each paragraph, check they flow clearly and logically and lead the reader through. Have you jumped topics? We don't want that. Have you got a clear aim for the section, and has the aim been achieved? Is there critical voice, a clear argument related to the subheading? That's what I mean by going off topic. Don't have things unrelated to your subheading. Is the research value there? And is there anything missing when you think about those main points? And then you're going to macro proofread your chapters. Same thing. Write down the main points of each section. Check the structure and flow. Is there anything missing? Do you scaffold the reader through? Is it logical? Did you say what you were did you do what you said you were going to do? Remember, every chapter needs those beginning paragraphs that tell the reader what you're going to do. Make sure you've done that. Have you achieved the aims? Is the value of your research clear? You've got these slides, so you can always go back to these. Of course, micro proofreading is essential as well. You're looking for all of these things here. So once you're thinking that the coherence is good and you have those things that you need and you've led the reader through nicely, then you can go into each paragraph and make sure everything's accurate. Make sure you've got those strong vocabulary and appropriate vocabulary. Academic conventions, of course, we mentioned those. Know the referencing rules. If you're using APA, you must be in APA 7. APA 6 basically doesn't exist anymore. Use a style manual to check the conventions. Don't rely on your software. And also things like short quotes, long quotes. When you're citing multiple sources, labeling tables and figures, all of those things are governed by your referencing style. Poll question 4, you can pop in the chat. What do you reckon? Knowledge of referencing conventions? Excellent, pretty good, need to improve. What's referencing? Yep, most people are pretty good. Awesome. That's great. So formatting a long Word document, not going to spend any time on this, but it is something you do need to do, of course. It's your responsibility. If you don't know how to do this, I would work it out as soon as you can. There's some stuff on HiQ. I just put the link in. So try to submit correctly formatted documents to your supervisors. So it's about your tables of contents, margins, headers, page breaks, that sort of thing. Seek feedback, of course. So once you've done your proofreading, seek feedback, address the feedback, proofread again. Try to seek feedback regularly and widely, of course. If we work in isolation, I know we don't want to have negative feedback, but if you do this proofreading really well, you will get mainly constructive feedback, I would say. We do have one more peer feedback session, and then they do start again in 2023. You can still register. It's on Thursday. You can see there at 10 o'clock. A really good way for you to get some initial feedback before you send to your supervisors, and a really good opportunity to engage with your peers and get improve your feedback literacy skills. So please come along. All right, now we're ready to examine our exemplars. Why do we do this? Well, if you analyze models of authentic writing and discuss that writing, the transfer of knowledge will be improved. So make the most of the opportunity as a reader, engage with the text, notice the things that we've been talking about, think about the quality of the writing, and then apply to your own writing. Relax, there's no right or wrong. It's not meant to be a hard thing as such. I'm hoping you enjoy reading the exemplars. And also remember, the exemplars that I choose are good, okay? They're not perfect because nobody's ever perfect generally, but they're always going to be good, all right? So don't second guess yourself and think, oh, I'm supposed to be finding that there's mistakes. Generally, they're pretty good. Again, as I say, not perfect, but I would never show you bad writing as an exemplar. All right, so we're going to look at this 3-step proofreading process, which is our macro, our micro, and our academic conventions. But remember, we're in a limited time, so we're doing this in a compressed way. When you do your own proofreading, you'll have more time, okay? But so we're just going through the process of it. Exemplar 1, we're going to do together. Exemplar 2, you're going to do in your groups. So let's have a look at the first one. Okay. That's the example we just looked at, remember? So let's keep going down. All right. So we have the first paragraphs of a methods section. All right, so we're going to look at the macro proofreading first. Now, remember, we've been talking about the fact that there's going to be an aim for each section. You'll need to adjust these questions depending on your section. As I said, it should only take you a minute to say, okay, this is a section in my methodology or in my lit review. And so my aim for this section is whatever. All right, so that shouldn't take too long. Now, what do you think the aims of the beginning paragraphs of a methods section might be? Yep. Give an overview of the methods used. Yes, perfect. Don't make the reader wait, right? So I would say need to state the aims and objectives of the whole study at the beginning, allude towards the gap or the problem. Now that could be in the first sentence. Remember, we're always reminding the reader about the aims of the study and the research problem, and you provide an overview of the research design. Yep. Someone said in the chat, rationalize and outline broadly what the study methods are, then follow, yep, can explain in detail. Absolutely. So let's see if this one has achieved those aims in a minute. We're looking at whether the paragraphs have a clear connection. Is there a research aim or problem? Is there critical voice? Is the value there? And we'll come back to G in a sec. So let's have a look. So this is paragraph 1 of the research design. Now, remember, this is a proposal. So this isn't a chapter, it's a section. Okay. The aim of the present study is to identify factors that predict team performance. Yep. So this is a lovely way to start any chapter. Okay, you might want to mix it up a bit, but let's remind the reader, or in this case, it's a section because it's a proposal, to identify factors that predict team performance in simulated cardiac arrest scenarios. Data collected will be analysed to identify factors that predict team performance. The sample for the proposed study will comprise of groups of health professionals attending training sessions. Okay, so we've got the participants, so this is good. Data will be collected from 60 teams, good. During their standard debriefing sessions, all participants will complete a questionnaire, which will include these closed and open-ended questions, and they've told us on what it is. So I like that. Videotapes of the scenarios will be analysed to determine the quality. Multiple regression analyses will be performed to test for relationships. Nice. So they're telling us a lot of information, which is good. Further, based on the multiple regression, 3 poorly functioning teams will be selected for in-depth case study analysis. Videotapes will be analysed using a framework of activity theory. Nice. Nice. We're getting a lot of information. Can you envisage now? I mean, yes, we need the details, but this is giving us a very good overview. And then look at this one. The study findings will provide strategies that may be used. That's good, right? Nice. While simulated arrests are an accepted method of training, they've not been used extensively. What have we got here? We've got some justification. Nice, nice. So there wasn't really any justification in here, but that's okay. They've got it straight away. Further, studying real cardiac arrest can be problematic. Okay. Yep. Fair. So if we're looking here, right, remember we're looking at the macro. So if we're looking here, we might start thinking, they're doing simulated cardiac arrests. Why don't they study real ones? There's just something in the chat. I'll come back in a sec to that. So where are we? The sample will comprise Right, so we might be thinking, why don't they study real ones? Well, this is why. Okay, may not be within, and for this reason, simulators provide a suitable context. So I like that. That's another justification. They'll be conducted in a mock hospital setting with real equipment. They'll mimic real cardiac arrest as closely as possible. The mixed method approach addresses research questions, and they're here. Okay, so let's come back. What are the aims? I reckon, yes, they have been achieved. Do the 2 paragraphs have a clear connection or flow? I would say yes. Which sentences explicitly state a research aim or problem? So the first one, so that's good. Where is the researcher's critical voice? Let's have a look. So no, nothing really there. We could say maybe this one. So I feel like the justification is critical voice, don't you think? Research questions. So I don't think it's a place where we're putting forward specific arguments that need that, but I think we can still see where this is going. I think there is enough critical voice for where we're at in this section of the research proposal. Is the value explicit and clear? Yeah, because it's here, right there in number 10. Now, what do you think about putting research questions in the methods chapter? Where else might you give them? That's something to think about, obviously, but remembering this is a proposal. So I would say they would already have had those research questions earlier, or maybe this is the first time, I can't remember. Now, someone said in the chat, the aim of the study will be at the end of introduction section. If we again start at the beginning, no, it doesn't. You mix up the way you're writing it. It's not repetitive. You need it again and again. And really, the end of your introduction section won't necessarily be the aim. You would have already said it by then. You need the aim right early in every section. So don't worry about repetition. What's the worst thing that will happen is your supervisors will say, oh, you've said the aim of the study too many times. I don't think that will happen, to be really honest. Repetition is good. You are persuading. This is a long document. You need to keep reminding the reader. So I think that they're good paragraphs. Now, let's do a quick micro proofread. Is there a clear topic sentence? The aim of the present study is to identify factors that predict team performance. Then they're saying how they're going to do that. So I think that's quite good. And I like that they've started with the aim. Paragraph 2, they've gone straight into it here, simulated arrests, and then they're talking about further there. For this reason, they provide a suitable context. Yeah, so I think that that's a good one too. And they do flow because it's flowing straight into a justification. Now, what we have to keep reminding ourselves of is this is a research proposal. There's no time really to go into too much or you really got to get the important information out there very quickly. What else have we got? Is there a main point? Yes. Doesn't go off topic. Let's check the tense in a minute and we'll see if word choice is appropriate and transition signals. Yeah, so we're in future tense because it's happening in the future, so that's okay. Yep. So there's a lot of will be. Obviously, once you're in the final thesis, you're into past tense. I think that there's good transition signals. We've got a further. They could probably mix it up a little bit, maybe further sort of there twice. For this reason is good. Okay, so I think that they're flowing very well and they're well written. And we're not going to look at academic conventions this time. But look, as far as what we're looking for, which is the common thread, which is the value and the aim of the section achieved, I would say big tick for all of those. Okay, remembering each section will have different aims. Not much critical voice in here or arguments as such because of what we're looking at, because we're looking at the methodology. However, by having these justifications, that's the researcher's voice. Okay, so which is what we need. We must always justify our methods. All right. Let's go to our next exemplar. Okay, peer discussion time. Engaging with your peers promotes active learning, increased retention and understanding, collaboration, evaluative judgment, all of those things. So please, please pop into the room with your peers. You're going to look at exemplar 2. I've said 20 minutes. I'm going to give you 15, okay? Okay. So hopefully that was a good experience. As I said, don't worry if all you got up to is the macro proofreading. I suspect that was probably the case, was it? Yep, which is fine, All right, so now time to check your documents. I'm going to give you another, let's say just less than 20 minutes. Question in the chat, how often and how long we should do for proofreading. I would definitely not do too much of a close proofread until you've got, you know, maybe 1 or 2 sections of a chapter, because that way, if you've got at least 2 sections, then you can also check the flow between the sections. And then how long. I would set a timer similar to what you do when you're doing your draft writing, assuming that that's what you do, because again, we can get really bogged down, and I mean, yeah, you can't spend too much time, but again, you're going to get tired as well. So what about if you did, so say you've got chapter 1 ready, okay, for you to give to your supervisors, and chapter 1, if it was the final thesis, let's say it had 5 sections in it. Even if that was the case, for each section, I would give yourself, say, half an hour to 45 minutes for each section. And then don't worry and do your macro proofreading and see how long that's taken you, so that you can then gauge what it should be for each section moving forward. So you can allocate your time. And maybe you want to divide out, do some macro proofreading and then come back later and do some micro proofreading. You might find that the micro takes longer, especially if you're having to fiddle with your sentences and sort of get them the way you need them to be. Academic conventions should take hardly any time at all. So I would do a bit of an experiment. Try a section, see how long it takes you, and then try to utilize that amount of time each time. So if you were to schedule an hour of proofreading of a section, depending on how long it is, you should be able to get through a macro and a micro there. And if you've set an hour and that's all the time you have, make sure you write a note for yourself to say where you're up to. Look, everyone's going to be different. Some of us can read really quickly. Some of us can't read as quickly. So that's going to be, you know, and also, is this your very first proofread or is it your final proofread as well? Your final proofread will be quicker. You know, if this is your first time, that's going to take longer, isn't it? I hope that answers. Yeah. If you're a fast reader, you know, it'll take less time. But again, as I said, it's not about speed. It's about how much time you have available, you know. And remember what I've said to you before. I think it's called Parkinson's theory, where if you have an hour to do something, you will take an hour. So if you only have half an hour to do something, you'll take half an hour. So that could help you with your allocating of your time, because I know you don't have endless amounts of time. There's a few things that I just want to highlight here. The first one is that if you're going through your macro proofreading and you're not sure whether you've done these things, ask the person who's giving you feedback, okay? Say, you know, can you see my voice? Have I linked the information back to my study enough? That's all part of your feedback literacy, isn't it? Being part of that process, being an active person within that process. You'll notice too, with the academic conventions, the first one there, do you have page numbers? You'd be surprised how many documents I see with no page numbers. It's much easier to give feedback if you have page numbers because we can refer back, okay? And again, with your micro proofreading, what you can also do is ask the person giving feedback. So if you've been agonizing about a sentence and you can't quite get it right, or you're not sure of the best word, ask the person giving you feedback. You know, so you don't have to come up with everything on your own. Remember that this is a community of practice. You're learning not in isolation. So if you're stuck and you find yourself agonizing, we were just talking before about how much time you should spend. Limit your time, give yourself time limits. Otherwise the day will be gone and you've, you know, proofread one section. And if you get stuck, that's definitely something you can ask the person you're seeking feedback from. So remember, as I said too, we were very condensed today with our timing. You might find it easier to do your macro for, you know, a little portion of time, half an hour, 45 minutes, and then to come back later or the next day and do your micro. Just make sure you leave yourself really good notes if you do that, so you know where you are up to. And those macro proofreading questions will change depending on the section and the chapter as well. But in general, you should have that explicit information linking back to your study with your common thread of the problem, aims, gaps, and the value as well. And we should see your critical voice through the strong vocabulary and those judgments and arguments. If you want to know more about thesis writing, this is, other than the peer feedback on Thursday, this is our last writing class for 2022, sorry. So of course, we'll be back in 2023, some face-to-face classes as well, but you can jump on Blackboard and see all of the classes that we've had this year or in this semester. I've just popped the link in there. So you can utilize those resources, or of course, they're all in UniHub as well. So you can sign up for next year. I'm going to pop that link into the chat as well. So everything will be on again next year. So main takeaways, this is an essential part of the writing process. You write those messy drafts, do a proofread to tidy up, seek feedback, address the feedback, do another proofread to tidy up again. Don't submit a rough draft that you haven't at least done some proofreading on. Break your proofreading into 3 parts if you can. Make sure you have that attention to detail. So it's a bit of a balance, isn't it? I don't want you to spend endless hours on this. Set your time limits, but also take your time, have your attention to detail. So, and read slowly. So you'll get to know how long these sorts of things will take. If you're a fast reader, it'll be quicker. Okay, but you might find particularly when you're macro proofreading, you might find that you've got a few questions that you still have, and you may have to go and do some more reading or some more thinking as well. So factor that in, understand your weaknesses as such and the things you need to improve on, and focus on those when you're proofreading and seeking feedback. So it's been lovely to have you all along. I do encourage you to give feedback. You can use that QR code there, and I'll also put the link in the chat. Remember, 5 is strongly agree, 1 is strongly disagree. The feedback is anonymous, and we do use it to improve each time. So just a reminder, the slides are already up on Blackboard. The recording, I think tomorrow morning. Okay, but I will send you an email with the recording details. It'll be in the same place where the slides are. Anyone interested in the design sprint? We have that on again. It's in February. You can see the dates there. It's a 1-week intensive program with part-time work required, pre and post sprint. Research students lead the sprint teams, and you're looking at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and you uncover and explore trends, technologies, and challenges. And then deliver what you find to some industry partners. So it is a really good opportunity to get some real world experience if it is applicable potentially to your research. And you can see the link there. It's under on the web page for design sprints, or you can, let me just pop an email in if you're interested. You do get paid, as you can see, for that 1 week. You can email Simon there. Yeah, so 500 stipend for that full-time week there. Really good opportunity if you're interested in doing something like that. Just a reminder that this afternoon we've got a self-sourcing HDR internship workshop. I'll be sitting in on that one, but that will be run by Simon, who's also doing the design sprint. Thursday, we've got the last HDR writing peer feedback session, and Monday, research career community, which facilitated by our careers educator. You get to connect with other HDRs and look at different career and research opportunities, and just helps for your overall strategies to further your career. It's a really good one. I think it might be the last careers one for the year. And that's it. So we have questions. You can turn on your mic, pop something in the chat. Yes, if you have to go, I completely understand. It is almost time to go. Have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you, Legion. You have a wonderful Christmas too. I'll see you guys in 2023. If I don't see you at the peer feedback session on Thursday. But thank you very much for coming along, for being engaged, working in the chat, and yeah. I will send an email with the link to the recording, and please let me know if you'd like the annotated version of the activity sheet. And lovely to have you all with me today. Thank you so much for coming along. Looks like there's no questions, so all right, thanks for coming along, and have a very happy Christmas, and I'll see you in 2023.